Oak Island Town Council public hearings and regular meeting, June 13, 2017, is now called to order. My goodness, I wish people would be coming this engaged at every meeting. This is awesome. We're going to start the agenda by asking Councilman Medlin to give the invocation and the pledge of allegiance, please. Please stand.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for every day. Thank you for this place, this beautiful place you've given us to live. Thank you for all these people who are here tonight to express their concerns about our town and about the issues that are important to all of us. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom, and may all that we do here tonight be done in unity and in one accord, and may it please you. And that we ask you tonight, Lord, that you'd protect our police officers, our service people, all who are in harm's way today, to protect us so that we could be free, so that we could have the freedom to be here and do exactly what we're doing right now. We thank you for that. Thank you for their protection. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Eaves, you want to say something before I start?
You want me to go ahead and get started? Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to everyone in the audience, we thank you all for being here. We have a pretty healthy agenda tonight, just to give you a roadmap of where we're going. We're first going to start out with a public hearing on the budget. Then we have 2 quasi-judicial hearings. Then we have 2 more public hearings. We ask that those of you that are here to make public comments on an agenda item or for some agenda item farther down, we ask that you be patient, and we ask that anyone who speaks tonight be civil, refrain from profanity, and understand that during the public comment portion, that's not a time for the public to engage the council. So, having said that, Madam Mayor, as we get to the quasi-judicial hearings, I'll admonish the council of the rules for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eaves. Public hearing number 1. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on the proposed 2017-18 budget. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone?
Margaret Bishop.
Ms. Bishop, I will remind everyone in the audience to state your address and your name, and there is a 3-minute time span limit, please.
Hello. This is Margaret Rudd Bishop. I've lived here since 1970. I came here in 58 when my granny bought a lot in the trees. And you know, it was wonderful then. There weren't any people there. I got to buy my groceries in Wilmington at the Winn-Dixie across from where Oleander Mall is now. What I'm trying to express is that this place is what it is because of our beach. And even those folks that don't use the beach, I bet you like to see your children and grandchildren. Maybe not all your company, but your children and grandchildren you love to see come to see you. Guess what? They wouldn't come nearly as much if we didn't have that beach strand out there available for them to enjoy. I congratulate council in having the grit to propose a 10-cent tax increase. I do own property in Oak Island. I live at 47 Yopon Way. I own a building at 210 Country Club Drive. I will be delighted if we can pass a tax measure that will help us support the renourishment of our beaches. Thank you for your attention. I'll try to be brief in the interest of your time and mine.
Thank you. Mr. Germain?
Hear me? Bob Germain.
Bob Germain, 6610 Kingsland Drive. Town Council and Mayor. We are now at the point where we must do something to protect and preserve our beach in our town. Without the beach as it is now, it will not exist in the future. The lifeline of our town is the beach. To make things as simple as possible, the town will go bankrupt if we lose the front row of homes in Beach Drive. Here's the economics of our situation. An increase of 10 cents per $100 valuation will increase the taxes of a $100,000 home by $100 per year. $1 million home will increase $1,000. If the homes along and close to the beach area are wiped out, the $100,000 homes will have to make up the tax monies of the homes that are wiped out. In essence, every $100,000 home will have to pay more in taxes to keep the town alive. This means that everyone else will be paying much more to make up the loss of the taxes of these houses. As a longtime homeowner in the town of Oak Island, I would rather pay $100 more per year than thousands of dollars if the town is lost. Importantly, these numbers do not include the cost of removing all the destroyed homes from the beach strand. The people who own these homes only get a maximum of $250,000 from the National Flood Insurance. That's if the homes are entirely flooded and not just undermined. These homeowners will walk away and leave it up to the town to clean up the more costly mess. We need to think of a $100 increase as an insurance policy and not a tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moon.
Dara Royal.
Dara Royal, 216 Northeast 47th Street. Mayor and members of council, this morning I emailed to you a spreadsheet I developed from public documents showing the expenses anticipated and revenues available in the 2017-18 budget for funding the pier rebuild project, the Moffett-Nichols contract, DEC professional services, the Wilmington Harbor Sand Management Plan, and the FEMA Emergency Dune project. The bottom line is all ongoing and proposed work can be completed in 2017-18 and can be accomplished with over $5 million to spare without any additional ad valorem tax increase. While there may be additional financial obligations of which I am not aware, I cannot imagine them being in excess of $5 million. The question before you is how to fund the completion of the FEMA Emergency Dune project in 2017-18. A, using funds from our public savings account, general fund available fund balance, which will be reimbursed the following budget year to that account. Or B, using funds from an additional 10-cent ad valorem tax levied on individual private savings accounts, which will never be reimbursed to those accounts. I encourage you to choose A. May I remind you that the primary purpose of general fund available fund balance in the town of Oak Island is to provide cash for storm-related expenditures until the paperwork for FEMA reimbursement can be processed. And may I point out from the spreadsheet that using general fund available fund balance to fund the completion of the FEMA Emergency Dune project in 2017-18 will still leave over $2.7 million available in the event of another emergency, over and above the $3 million needed to maintain 25% of general fund expenditures per town policy. I've shared this spreadsheet with David Kelly and Dave Hatton over the weekend, and I am confident they have been and will continue to provide you with a complete picture using the most up-to-date and accurate numbers for your consideration during your deliberations this evening. I offer these comments with highest regard, and thank you for your consideration.
Mayor, that's all I had signed up specifically for the hearing. I do have a couple of people who signed up to speak about the budget under public comments, and that's fine. They can stay there, or if they wanted to speak now.
I have signed up on one of these lists. Madam
Right,
Mayor,
you
I'd
signed
just
up for-
ask if anyone else would like to speak about the budget.
Does anyone else have anything to speak about the budget? Mr. Foster?
I had a Glenn Baker. Okay.
Okay, Glenn Baker, 110 Northeast 16th Street, been a homeowner here since 2014. I understand the need for the budget for the beach, that everybody knows that that's the biggest draw, but I ask the city council and the mayor to think about the elderly citizens that are on the majority on this island that are on fixed income. There's 3 or 4 that are on our block that we're good friends with, that $100, as one gentleman said, might not be much to him, but those individuals, that puts them in a severe economic strain. So I ask that you just, carefully review the amount of taxes if you're going to raise and put the assessment on there for these folks. I don't know all the demographics of the city, but I know that there's a large proportion of these individuals that would probably have to leave and sell their homes by just a small amount of increase of $100 like that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's the only other person I had specifically that just listed the budget.
Okay, all right, thank you. Last call, no one? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to public hearing number 2, and Mr. Eves, this is a quasi-judicial. You want to
Yeah.
talk about both of those at the same time?
Yes, Madam Mayor, on the quasi-judicial hearings, we need to conduct those to ensure both procedural and substantive due process, and to that end, your decision has to be based only on the competent evidence that you hear tonight. Before we get started on the hearing, I'd like to ask a few questions of the council. Has anyone have a financial interest in the outcome of this hearing? Has anyone had any ex parte contact with either the staff or the applicant about this particular application? Has anybody made a site visit to this site and thinks that will affect their decision tonight? Does anyone have any reason that I haven't asked you about which would make you think you can't be fair and impartial and base your decision only on the competent evidence you hear tonight? Right. The order will go, we'll hear from staff first and then the applicant. Both sides will have the right to cross-examine the other side, and all those wishing to offer testimony will have to first be sworn in.
Okay, and before I open that public hearing, I need a motion to close public hearing number 1.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. All right, public hearing number 2. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on a request for a conditional use permit for a contractor office, outdoor storage, and display at 4912 East Oak Island Drive. Is anyone to speak on that, the site?
He's right there, over there.
Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, ma'am.
Ma'am Sides. Go ahead and make a motion to come out of public hearing.
You want to hear?
Yeah, come on.
Here then.
Okay, I can give a brief staff report, if that's okay. The applicant's applying for a conditional use permit in order to have a contractor's office with outdoor storage and display located at 4912 East Oak Island Drive. There's currently a contractor's office out there, and in the rear of the lot, there's storage and items like that. And that's permissible within our zoning ordinance as long as a conditional use permit is obtained, which is why the applicant is here before you today. He's in the zoning district, CB, community business, which allows it. That's section 18-116 of our ordinance that specifies a CUP is required. There are not any additional standards specific to this land use that coincide with a conditional use permit in our zoning ordinance. Our ordinance does lay out 4 general standards to be considered when approving conditional use permits. One is that it doesn't materially endanger the public health or safety, that it meets all the ordinance standards or any conditions that may be imposed by you all, that it doesn't injure the adjoining neighbor's property values, and that it's in harmony with the area. So those are those standards that ordinance outlines. With the public notification has been done, certified letters to the adjacent property owners, a sign being placed out on the site, that kind of stuff. The planning board did review the case and recommended approval, and that's essentially it in a nutshell. If you have any questions of me, or Purser can cross-examine me if he wants to.
Well, the staff have a position on this?
My staff recommendation would be for approval. It meets I think it's fine, meets the standards of our ordinance, as long as it's properly permitted, which is why it's before you now.
Do you want to move the application into evidence as Exhibit A?
I would.
Mr. Purser, you have any questions as far as council, mayor?
Any questions?
Mr. Purser? Have anything to add? Does anybody have any questions of the applicant?
Just one question for Mr. Purser. In our packet, it shows the fence block material for the, are you going to be installing that?
We'd prefer not to install that particular one. What we're trying to do is try to find some light but dark gray inserts that go in between the chain link fence. That's more, it'll look better, but, the problem is the UV resistance. How quick is this item going to fade? And then the cost of it also. As soon as we find it, we'll put something in.
Okay. One question I have.
Any more questions? At this time, I entertain a motion to come out of public hearing number 2.
So moved.
Second, please. Second. All in favor? Thank you. Council may take action on this particular request tonight.
Madam Mayor, I believe staff have some proposed findings.
When you make the motion, we could just have you guys could adopt the findings of facts with the motion, or do it as a separate motion. I have them prepared and ready for you to sign.
They have to be two separate motions.
They can be, but you can roll them together.
Okay, I'll make a motion, Madam Mayor, to approve the findings of fact that are listed on page 2 in our packet, and also to approve the conditional use permit.
Can I have a second?
Second.
I guess Scotty would be the second. All in favor, please. Unanimous, Lisa. And this time, we'll move to public hearing number 3. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear citizens' comments on requests for a conditional use permit for a dwelling and principal business at Northeast 54th Street and East Oak Island Drive.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask to be recused from any voting on this issue, as this is family.
I'd like to have a motion to recuse Madam Bell.
So moved.
Second, please.
Well, for the record, do you feel like you have a direct financial conflict?
I don't know that I have a direct financial interest, but it is family. That is my
So
nephew.
you couldn't be fair and impartial?
Correct.
I recommend that she be recused from voting, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
Need
moved.
to vote on that?
We did.
Okay.
It's unanimous.
Did you?
I'm sorry, I didn't see you call
Scotty
for the
made a
vote.
motion.
Yeah.
Jeff
All in
seconded.
favor? I'll call again.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Mayor, before we begin, like the previous hearing, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so we need to ensure due process. I asked a series of questions earlier. Those same questions would apply to this hearing. Does anyone have anything they would like to volunteer, or any questions you'd like me to re-ask?
I think we're good.
We'll go in the same order. We'll hear from staff first, and then we'll hear from the applicant. Both sides will have the right to cross-examine the other side, and we'll have to base our decision on competent evidence. Councilmember Bell's not allowed to discuss this once you start discussing it. And we'll hear from Jake and the applicant.
Okay. Like before, this is a conditional use permit, but for a different item. It's for a dwelling and a principal business located by Northeast 54th Street and East Oak Island Drive, an undeveloped lot at the moment. at that site. I did include a site location area map in your agenda packet, so you can see where it is. The applicant currently has a air conditioning building, Mansfield, across the street, and he wishes to relocate and build on an undeveloped lot on the other side of the road that's somewhat adjacent and catty-corner to it. Our table of uses, section 18116, specifies that a dwelling in a principal use is permissible as long as a conditional use permit is obtained. It's in the CB, Community Business Zoning District, and that's the column where it says conditional use permit is mandatory. In this one, there are additional standards that are specific to this land use that have to be met. One is that a off-street parking space is required for each residential bedroom, which they have done, and it's in their site plan survey, which is in their agenda packet, and that the residential part of the structure meets state building code, which is given anyway. Our inspectors will verify that. But those are the two standards. The planning board did review it and unanimously recommended approval. When it comes time to make the motion at the end, like before, we'll have to include the adoption of the findings of facts. The public notifications have been done, the sign and the letters, and your vote can either be for denial or approval with conditions. But that's essentially it for my staff report. I have done a preliminary review. They've already applied for a development permit, and I've had a back and forth with the architects to verify zoning compliance, and the site plan drawings in your application packet are compliant with our zoning ordinance. That's all.
Jake, is the planning board recommendation in the agenda packet?
It is, and I'd like to enter all the items into the agenda packet as Exhibit A for the record.
Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Jake?
Just for clarification, the property there is already zoned commercial. The reason reason they're applying for a conditional use permit is because of living space up top.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Mr. Mansfield, you have any questions, Jake? Mr. Mansfield, if you'd like to come make any type of presentation, now would be the time. He said he didn't have no questions of Jake.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mansfield?
No
All right,
questions?
thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call for a motion to close public hearing number 3.
So moved.
Second, Charlie. All in favor? All right, thank you. As with the other, the council may also take action on this public hearing tonight.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to approve the conditional use permit and the associated findings of fact.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Public hearing number 4. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on a proposed amendment to 18-117 and 18-118 to change the oceanfront rear setback. Anyone signed up, Madam Clerk?
No.
Does anyone have any questions for Jake while he's at the podium? This is a staff recommendation?
Yes, staff initiated, staff recommended, planning board recommended.
You can do that in discussion if you want. If no one wants to speak, you can go ahead and close the public hearing.
Okay. I'll call for a motion to close public hearing number 4.
So moved.
Second, please. All in favor? Thank you.
Any questions of
Oh,
staff?
all opposed? Did you raise your hand, Scotty?
Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about this.
All right.
Any discussion for Jake?
It might be beneficial for our planner to explain what this is so our people will understand it.
Sure. Absolutely. So this is to rectify some setback issues with oceanfront properties. It'll give them a little relief and clarify some confusing stuff and help with their buildable area and not restrict it as much. There's a survey attached in the staff report, which helps. I'm a visual person, so that helps me. But essentially, anything seaward of the Army Corps of Engineers mean high water line that is mapped on our website that goes all across Oak Island's oceanfront. Anything seaward of that is considered public trust lands intended for public use, and then anything landward of that is private property of those property owners. So this essentially lets it known that as far as setbacks are concerned, that is considered the rear property line and the rear setback line as well. So it's not 20 feet up from that line, which is a typical rear setback for that zoning district where most of the oceanfront properties are located. That sets the demarcation line right there. The staff report is a bit lengthy and complicated, but what the text amendment actually does is pretty straightforward and simple.
Madam Mayor, what it does not do is change the legal definition of private property versus public property. This is for setback purposes only.
And it'll be whichever is more restrictive, if I understand that correctly, the new development line or the 2000 core line?
That's
Is that
correct. And it aligns well with, I included in the excerpts in the attachments of the general statutes that correlate to this, as well as what's existing in our current zoning ordinance that pretty much just summarizes exactly everything I just said about where that demarcation line is and what its purpose is for.
Okay, any more questions?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the text amendment with the associated consistency statement as presented in our packet.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimously. Public hearing number 5. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on proposed ordinance amendments to Section 18-252, 18-255, 18-264 regarding an A-frame or sandwich board signs and feather signs. Anyone's?
No, ma'am.
I can close the meeting and then
We
talk.
opened it?
What?
We opened the fifth one?
Yeah, I just did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Check the tape.
Okay. Now, anyone have any questions for Jake regarding this
That's your separate.
content change?
This is a rather lengthy presentation in our packet, Gig, where you're getting real good at that. Just a question, and have there been some complaints about this? Is this the reason we're doing this? Or are we just trying to keep from having complaints?
That's the one, the latter.
Well, it makes sense the way you have it worded, because a business wouldn't need more than 2 of each of these, or 2 of any one of these. There could be 1 of each, right?
Yes, as whatever preference the business owner prefers. 2 of
Okay.
one of each, that's up to them.
Okay.
My only concern was something that we talked about, was changing the maximum 6 square feet per side to a maximum of 12 square feet. Because the way it was worded, you were measuring on some of the ordinances, it was measuring both sides, and some it was measuring just the square foot of the sign. Specifically, the proposed ordinance language states that no more than 2 A-frame sandwich signs. 12 square feet is set for A-frame sandwich board signs. There was some question about that on the very first page, page 40.
Right, yeah, wait, page 40, so I was looking at 43. We can adjust the proposed wording to account for that and say no more than 12 square feet combined total.
I guess my concern was that you would be measuring some signs one way and sandwich board and feather signs the other way.
There wasn't, for feather flag signs, there wasn't a max square footage proposed, but there
Okay.
was a height of 10 feet
Okay?
restricted. But
Okay,
square
but the
footage,
sandwich board signs are measured the same way a commercial sign is measured, correct?
yeah, base time height, just, yes. But yeah, I guess the question is, one side versus the other, not having it a double dip or be confusing.
Correct.
So if it's stated, well, I'll accept any wording you guys want. My suggestion would be no more than 12 square feet combined total. I guess that'd be a 2x3 sign, 6 on each side.
Clear as mud, Jake.
Anyone have any questions, more questions for Jake?
So you could have one sign, 12 square feet, or two signs of 6 square feet each. Is that what you're saying?
No. If we're talking about the sandwich board A-frame signs, and those terms are used interchangeably, they're the same thing, the business owner could choose two, hypothetically, of the A-frame signs if they preferred those over the feather flag signs, and each one could be 12 square feet for one, 6 square feet on each side, and then the same for the other one, unless you guys want to reword it differently.
I don't think I've ever seen sandwich sign that large.
That tall? It's not a height thing.
That wide.
Oh. 3 feet?
6 feet on each side.
Pardon me?
6 feet on each side, not 12 feet on one side.
2 by 3, there.
That's what I put in the staff report.
Anything else for Jake? We can take action on this tonight, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we accept the amendment as written, and
Okay. Second, please.
Second.
So all in favor? Yes, thank you. All right, that takes us out of the public hearing part of our agenda. We have no presentation, proclamations, or recognitions tonight. At this time, does anyone have an adjustment to the agenda?
Your own.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to be able to move old business item number 2, the golf course, to immediately follow the consent agenda. And that way, a lot of these people that don't have chairs and all can leave if they wish.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. So we're moving
Yes, I have,
from new business up to right under the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
I did have one addition for the agenda for you as well, the application, additional application for the Emergency Services Advisory Board.
Okay,
Maybe we'll add that to your agenda as well, please.
all right, so be it. Thank you.
And then we still need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Now it's time for our public comment section of the agenda. Please remember to state your name and a 3-minute time limit. And Lisa, can you briefly tell me how many we have?
1, 2, 3. 15 total.
Okay, good.
Okay,
50?
okay. Can't hear me if you, okay. Jim Cross? Cross, okay.
Good evening. I'm Jim Cross. I'm a resident of the South Harvard Village community. I'm also chairman of the Oak Island Par 3 Advisory Committee, and currently I'm acting as your green superintendent at the Par 3 in absence of a new hire. As part of my background, I'm a graduate of Rutgers University with a degree in turfgrass management, and I had a relatively successful 40-year career managing golf courses, grounds, and facilities. Additional experience consulting with schools, parks, and athletic facilities also. I'm here to speak to you from a position of education experience and not just the passion that some of the others are here to speak about, but I wish to comment on some of the practical means of golf course management with regards to the Par 3. and those are operations and marketing. With regard to operations, I sent an email last week to the mayor and council introducing myself, my qualifications. Thank you for your response. And offering my education experience to assist the town if that's wanted or needed in evaluating the golf course operation. I believe a detailed review of the current operating procedures could find areas where efficiencies could be made, and that would aid the town in reducing additional financial burdens on the town reserves. This would entail review and rating of proposed budget, staffing, and evaluation of all equipment, irrigation, and facilities. Currently in place, we have a very courteous pro shop staff, a small hard-working maintenance team, a group of rangers that ably assist with maintenance, housekeeping, and security, and a handful of local volunteers that perform various maintenance to assure proper presentation of this hidden gem. To turn the course over to another entity or persons unfamiliar with the proper care of golf courses and putting greens in particular, I believe would be a recipe for failure. On the marketing side, recently in the news, Mr. Blaylock was on TV, and there was a statement that the course had not been promoted or publicized enough to attract additional play. Myself and the Par 3 committee wholeheartedly agree with that assessment. The Par 3 committee, with input from many of the dedicated members, past and present over the past couple of years, developed a business plan that outlines a number of goals and strategies for sustainability of the golf course. In case you're not familiar with it, I have copies I will submit to the town clerk for your review and at your convenience. But in summary, the quality of golf course management is paramount to the survival of the course. The plan really needs to go from discussion to action to let people know that we exist. Advertising and promotion can only benefit your bottom line. So in summary, I know there's much going on with regards to the future of the golf course. The current coverage in the media has put us on the map, so that could be a good thing. It is my hope that there will not be a motion to go forward closing down the existing operations at this time without exploring any and all other options. It's a prime time of year for the golf course. If you look at the history of revenues, the summertime is when you do make the most revenue with the bulk of your revenue on the golf course.
Thank you so much.
Jean Brown? Jean Brown?
Good evening. My name is Jean Brown, and I am a property owner and a resident of South Harbor Village. I live at 5243 Minnesota Drive. We understand that there will be a proposal to add an amendment to the motion concerning the Par 3 course in our community. And we respectfully ask that council carefully consider and pass this amendment. The property owners and residents of South Harbor Village sincerely hope to arrive at a mutually agreeable solution with the town of Oak Island on this matter of the golf course. Thank you.
Vance Hamilton?
It's been about 10 years since I served on this council here, and some major progress has been made since that time. This is a beautiful meeting place, and even David now is wearing a suit. That's the greatest improvement of all.
Can I get you to state your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I wasn't used to doing that. I'm Vance Hamilton. I live in South Harbor Village also at 5094 Glen Cove Drive, and I have a couple other properties there. But I have sent the town council and the mayor an email that explains how I feel about the golf course and maybe some of the shortcomings of the plan that I read about. And I hope that, you know, if you do pass the first one tonight, that you do pass an amendment to it, because we certainly don't want this to end up where it's evidently going to if we mess the thing up. And I'm not going to make a speech tonight. I'm going to make 3 points. The first point is that South Harbor Village is a part of Oak Island. I wonder if most people in here realize that. I know most of you do. Just to emphasize the point, when I moved down here 23 years ago, I lived in the heart of Oak Island. I moved from there to the golf course in Yopon. Today, that's still in Oak Island. From there, I moved to the Intercoastal Waterway. That's still in Oak Island. Today, I live in South Harbor, which suits us well at our age, and that's still in South Harbor. So we got to start thinking about the whole community. The second point I want to make is I've read and heard that South Harbor is not paying its fair share of operating the golf course. Well, we pay taxes, believe it or not. We pay taxes just like the rest of you guys that live someplace else. And Margaret, I'm pleased to tell you that I support a 10-cent tax raise. We got to keep the beaches. I don't go as much as I used to, but I realize the importance of it to this community. So we are paying. We're paying, and I think actually in letters to the editors, I've said the town's actually getting a pretty good deal out of South Harbor, and I still believe it, because we pay for a lot of amenities over there for ourselves that the town doesn't have to pay for. The third point I want to make is that South Harbor was offered, South Harbor Association, its members, were offered the golf course, actually pressured us to take the golf course, and we refused. And then, and I was working with the town attorney at that time, then Oak Island was offered the same opportunity, and they accepted it with a deed restriction. I'm not going to get into that. I do believe a deed restriction is the same thing as a legal document. Not an attorney, but I've always been told that. So I want those types of things, you to think about it when you make your decision. The other thing I'm going to say in closing is, gosh, I now know why I didn't decide to run for a second term.
Adam Berkowitz.
Adam Berkowitz, 5239 Minnesota Drive. 2 years ago, I purchased my home at 5239 Minnesota Drive in South Harbor Village. I was very impressed by its location on the fairway on the 8th hole. I knew the property would command a premium dollar considering it was on a golf course. And before purchasing my home, I inquired about who ran the golf course. I was informed it was run by the town of Oak Island, and the town had signed a multi-decade agreement to operate the golf course. I subsequently purchased the home knowing that the location would be maintained and the premium I paid on my home value would be protected. To learn that the town is willing to break its promise is beyond a disappointment. I feel betrayed and deceived to know that I paid a premium on a home that premium is now in jeopardy. By breaking this promise, the town of Oak Island's promise, this council is executing a bait and switch on all residents of South Harbor Village. I propose the proposed motion constitutes a fraud and theft of the South Harbor Village owners in a rough order of magnitude of $13 million. To hold a vote on this motion without the proper time to vet the consequences of your decision would be an act of reckless governance. I would like the council to consider a time extension prior to a vote on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it George Bryant?
Good evening. Name is George Bryant. Live at 5183 Minnesota Drive in South Harbor. I'm under the impression that an amendment to the previously tabled motion regarding the par 3 golf course will be proposed tonight. This calls for a delay in the enactment of the motion should it be passed. First, I'd ask the council to vote against the motion as it stands, but if you're not willing to do that, I would encourage you to vote in favor of the amendment. I think it's the desire of most of the residents of South Harbor Village and the Homeowners Association to try to work with the town to keep the course open and operating much the same as it is now. However, we're a large community and the residents need time to discuss the merits of potential action that might be undertaken to keep the course operating. We'd have to consider voting for a change to our association bylaws, and our residents would have to approve any recommendations made by the Homeowners Association. That takes time. The amendment would also allow the town time to take the proper time for financial due diligence regarding the actions proposed in the motion. It appears that a thorough financial projection had not been performed regarding the true economic impact on the taxpayers that would result from passing this motion. One simple example is a pro shop. The motion calls for closing the pro shop and allowing free play. If you look at the pro shop, the expense for this year is $98,000. The income is projected to be about $150,000. Any way you slice it, that tells me there's a $52,000 profit on the pro shop. If you're going to operate the golf course as a playable golf course, why would you want to give away $52,000 in taxpayer money? I can also tell you, if you look at your budget, it needs a thorough audit and a thorough review of all the expenses, the reality of those expenses in areas where costs could be reduced. They are in there. That doesn't take a golf course superintendent to see that. So the proposed amendment won't change the basic motion, but allows the town, the residents of our community, and the Homeowners Association to work with the town to try to develop some type of long-term plan. In closing, I'd say it appears this motion was thrown on the table with very little forethought of financial due diligence. It needs careful review and discussion by everybody. If you don't allow the time to plan and execute an effective strategy, the odds are we'll be here a year from now talking about a whole new set of problems on the golf course. Thank you.
Renee Walters.
Good evening. My name is Renee Walters, and I'm a proud homeowner of 5130 Melinda Court in South Harbor. Would like to express my feelings on this agenda tonight of the par 3. This isn't just, I'm not a golfer myself, but I do live on T-Box 3, and I love watching the golfers that are out there. I have 2 adopted children, and one is a golfer. This is a perfect place for children to learn golf. It's not just for the adults. This is for the kids. We need something for our children as well here. This is a par 3. It's a small course. First Tee gives lessons there. And, we need something for the kids in the community that are, we're all getting older and things are going to change. We need something for our children. And this is a perfect opportunity for them to continue to grow and keep our community as a whole. We need this course, folks. We need it not just for ourselves, but we need it for our children.
Bob Gonzalez? I'm sorry? Okay. Okay.
I love the community of Oak Island. I started coming to Oak Island in 1990.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Could you say your name and address for?
Yes, my name is Keith Mills of 5198 Minnesota Drive,
Thank you.
Southeast. I've been coming to Oak Island since 1994, and I love the place. And when they opened the Par 3, it was even more wonderful for me. And I love the opportunity it presents to all age levels. I started working there as a ranger, as a volunteer. I've worked on the grounds. I work in the pro shop. And I'm not here as an employee. I'm here because I'm a resident of the area. I work with those that love the golf. And the golf is just part of the recreational opportunities our area offers. People all over know of Oak Island and what a wonderful opportunity it presents. And I just want to bring out one other item, that the proposal to have totally unlimited access to this area would be a disaster for a number of reasons. I work in the pro shop, and a couple of weeks ago, a couple came in and said, boy, were we lucky. They got to this one hole, and they hit off the tee, and lo and behold, below them were kids playing soccer out in the fairway. Now, this kind of thing with no control would cause a great deal of danger to all involved. There's been ATV riding and a number of other incidents. If you operate this area with no access control, it no longer is a golf course, but it becomes a public safety hazard. And with the other comments that have been made, I can just add that the resolution, whatever we want to call it, that's been set before us, shows a lack of thought in all the things, concerns. An old preacher by the name of John McNeil said, those that think by the inch and talk by the yard should be dealt with by the foot.
Stephen Byrd.
My name is Stephen Byrd. I live at 5135 Melinda Court in South Harbor. I live on the 4th Fairway, and I observe every day moms and dads, families, children, ladies enjoying golf on a reasonably priced course that they can enjoy together. It is so well fitted for older people because much shorter than a regular 18-hole course. If properly promoted like other attractions in other communities, it could at least break even, and maybe better, it has no promotion. There are some ways to cut overhead if given focused attention. The closing or the ceasing of the maintenance will, of course, destroy the course and bring down home values in the area. I appreciate the effort of our council to save money, but there are other projects being funded by all of us that do not affect us and are very expensive indeed. The Par 3 hasn't been given a fair chance, and it's unfair and unwise to neglect it and allow it to become a weed field, or see politics manipulate things and a contractor end up building houses on the property. And so please do not do this to us. I spent a great part of my day today interviewing people coming through playing golf. I interviewed people from Ohio, Tennessee, other communities in our area, other towns in North Carolina. One family from Holden Beach that was on vacation there and had come over to our par 3 course today to play golf. So when I hear some of these stories, I see granddads and grandsons, father and son. There's no other place. And a father told me today from Ohio on vacation that he and his son have to have a par 3 course like this or they can't play golf on an 18-par course. A lady said to me today that this was a part of the Oak Island experience. I believe she's right. And so I encourage our council tonight to please let us keep our golf course. I wonder about, I won't say that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jim and Barbara Griever, but are you going to speak separately? Okay. Okay, changing topics. Billy Latond. Did I finally learn to say it right? Okay, good.
Billy Latond, 132 Northeast 11th Street, Oak Island. And I'm here representing the Beach Preservation Society, trying to keep you up to date on what we're doing. Our brand new newsletter is out. There's some on the table, and I think all of you should have gotten a copy in your email today so you can see it in color. It's much better that way. I invite all of you to pick up a copy too. If there are not enough there are more downstairs. We just had our first aquarium program last Thursday. That was a big hit. Try to do 3 every summer at the rec center. And our first one was Turtles 911. And everybody had a wonderful time. We had about 45 people, adults and children and unattended adults who came without children. Everybody loved it. Our next program is July 13th. Our living seashells, and August 10th we have sharks. All programs are at 2 o'clock and they're all free. We will be set up at the farmers market for 3 Mondays this summer. Our first one was yesterday. Our next one is June 19th and then July 24th, I believe. So come out and say hello to us and talk to us and pick up some gear. Everybody looks nice in a beach preservation t-shirt. And we will also be at Beach Day, and we have a cornhole contest. So come on out and register and try your hand at throwing those bean bags. We hope to see you there, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Roseanne Fortner.
Roseanne Fortner, 113 Paula Circle, speaking as a private citizen. The town has a lot of issues before it tonight, but I'm asking us to stop for a moment and look at the bigger picture of what's happening around us in the country. Number 1, there's an emerging contaminant called Gen X in the Cape Fear River, upstream of the drinking water supply of Wilmington and New Hanover. What goes into the Cape Fear comes out at Southport. Human health risks are not yet known, but early studies show tumors and death among test animals, and water uses are being carefully observed for signs of impact. Related to this, Congressman Rouser yesterday sent a message to his constituents saying, "My office has been in contact with the EPA to make sure they're on top of this." And yet the federal budget requests cuts of 31% from EPA's budget. Clean and safe water accounts for nearly half of EPA's expenditures. We can't lose a third of that. The EPA is responsible for protecting human health and the environment in that order. Protecting people from harmful chemicals in the environment requires strengthening the EPA rather than gutting it. Number 2, we have sea turtles coming on shore for nesting. The hatchlings we send out to sea this summer won't come back for 20 to 30 years to nest, but some adults will be ready to lay their eggs next summer, unless the reopening of leases for gas and oil exploration makes our waters and beaches unfit for and maybe deadly to sea turtles. Clean energy sources are growing the number of jobs and the economic value of our region. More oil and gas exploration offshore will increase the risk of spills and the loss of economic viability of our shoreline. Today, there are 108 new jobs posted in renewable energy in North Carolina. Ready today for those jobs. Stop drilling, protect turtles, increase 21st century jobs. Number 3, the federal budget cuts about 17% from the Department of Commerce, primarily NOAA. The cuts would eliminate $250 million in coastal research programs, including the popular $73 million Sea Grant program. Sea Grant has sent us our erosion guest speaker, Spencer Rogers. They educate us about rip currents with those signs and education programs. They assist in oyster research and marketing. They promote coastal community resilience, do research on plastic contamination, and so forth. The President's budget document asserts that these programs primarily benefit state and local stakeholders, making them lower priority. National parks are on the cut list. Our 4 in the North Carolina brought in more than $215 million in visitor spending in 2016, and more than 3,400 local jobs were supported. I call on Council to submit a letter of concern to our congressmen and senators opposing the federal budget cuts that will impact our coastal economy and threaten our health and safety. The island's collective voice needs to be heard. Request that EPA, NOAA, and Sea Grant and our national parks be fully funded in the budget rather than being cut or eliminated.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton.
Kelly Jermaine?
Kelly Jermaine, 6610 Kingsland Drive. Mayor and Town Council, I'm actually going to talk about 2 different entirely subjects that have been discussed. One is 69th Place West parking, and the other is beach nourishment. Regarding the 69th Place parking, before you add parking to 69th Place, you should first monitor the parking that is done in the West Beach and Kingsland parking lots. There are spaces that could have more parking bumpers, and too often vehicles are parked taking up 2 spaces. This needs to be monitored. We need to evaluate the efficiency of the present configurations. Both can be greatly improved. The West Beach parking lot is capable of being expanded too. And this is important as being a long-term resident. Before the no parking signs were placed on 69th, vehicles were parked all over 69th Place. One of the last homes on West Beach was on fire. The fire engine came down Kingsland Drive, could not get through, had to turn around, go back to the fork, and back down West Beach to the burning house. If you allow parking there, it's going to be parking all over. Now, also important, regarding the need for beach nourishment, I have 3 facts to state. A new water inlet was created by Hurricane Hazel in 1954, effectively cutting off the west end of Long Beach between 51st and 54th Place West. Today, think about it, how devastating that would be to our utility and sewer infrastructures along the entire beachfront. A lot of time and effort was spent on developing the new land use plan, and a lot of members here were part of the CPAC. We received over 2,000 surveys that were returned and considered our beach as the top asset for Oak Island. Approved by you, the #1 goal of the plan is, I quote, "In all decisions/actions, Oak Island will address the impact on its quality of life and maintenance of a family beach atmosphere." Well, if there's no beach there, we don't have to worry about any of that. You need to represent all property owners that pay taxes to the town of Oak Island, not just some. Thank you, and I hope you do the right thing. I hope you do something. Thank you.
Steve Foster.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, Assistant Town Manager. I appreciate that. My name's Steve Foster. I live at 6634 Kings Lynn Drive. I was going to talk a little bit more about the 69th West, but I think Kelly pretty much covered that. The only thing I would like to say is that we've had two major fires down there. One complete loss, burned to the ground, had another one. And I think you covered the one with the problems that we had with parking, getting the trucks through. This is the last place that you can cross over from Beach Drive over to Kings Lynn Drive. And it's essential that we keep that open. I know it looks like it's a perfect place for parking, but due to this public safety issue, I just don't see that that's a very healthy thing to do. We've had a couple town councils open them and close them based on these various problems that we've had. That's my first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about, I think it's time for the town to take a 30,000-foot view about parking. I mean, this is becoming more of a problem for everybody in this room. I know there's a lot of South Harbor Village people here, but especially close to the beach, that we're having to deal with, and it's getting worse as time goes on. And I just don't think that we have a parking policy or philosophy, but we certainly need to develop one either by way of a committee, joint committee with the town board and a committee, or some other method to be able to take care of these things. Right now, the town has got a service area out in the county. I estimate that when I was town manager here, between 40 and 50,000 people. Now, this is the closest place that they're going to come. That includes Bowling Spring Lakes, St. James, Southport, all the rest of them, Bolivia. It's a major, and it's becoming more of a major population issue. You can't put 80 pounds of sand in a 40-pound bag. You just can't do it. You've got the problems with people parking in front of people's houses. If you did take 69th Place and you did convert it into parking, it's going to be good for maybe a week or two. And then you're going to be saying, well, where else are we going to park all these cars? So it's an ongoing problem that, that needs to be addressed more as a policy issue. And the other thing is, too, there's a couple other aspects of this thing. If you're going to have to increase parking down there, you got 20 acres of land. And I was just talking with Steve, and he said based on certain FEMA requirements, it can be done to expand the parking down there. But here again, you're only moving the problem forward. You don't have a philosophy or a plan to deal with, parking going down the road. When you've got this many people coming to the beach, you're going to have problems. And we've had some problems. I know that y'all have gotten phone calls and emails about them. The 69th Place is not your answer. The answer is coming up with a credible parking plan. We are all taxpayers here. We all pay taxes, and especially people in the wooded area, they pay taxes where they can get parking down near the beach. Well, what we can do is just increase the number of decal parking areas down there for them, and that should take care of it. But please don't turn 69th Place into a parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector.
Excuse me, is this now a public hearing?
No, sir, you're out of order.
I thought we had an item on the agenda. Can we restrict that to what we were
Brian.
given our...
Sir, this is public comments on any subject matter. It is. The council's already rearranged the agenda to accommodate the apparent interest in one of the agenda items, but this is not restricted to just the golf course.
Mayor, that's all I had signed up for public comments.
That's all? Does anybody else wish to speak on any subject? Ms. Thorne?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I couldn't find a parking place, so I was late getting in and I couldn't sign up. So I will be brief. Betty Thorne, 2501 East Beach Drive. I'm here tonight to, as you can imagine, urge you to take the first step tonight towards funding a beach renourishment project by either approving that 10-cent tax increase that was proposed by your Deck Associates consultant, or by committing the appropriate funding out of our general fund. I think it is imperative that this action be taken tonight and be effective with this year's budget. I don't think we can wait any longer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Come on up. 3 minutes with your name and address, please.
Good evening. Barry Golub, 6615 West Beach. As this council knows, you have two main responsibilities. One is to protect the health, life, and liberty of its citizens. The other is to protect its property. The only way to protect the property of all of the citizens is beach renourishment. And the only way to get beach renourishment is to pay for it ourselves. We've seen from last year when Councilman Medlin tried to get some kind of a tax incentive going, and that failed miserably. The theory was, okay, we'll try to get funds somewhere else. Well, we're a year later now, and we're nowhere closer to getting funds. It doesn't matter whether the beach costs $30 million or $40 million or whatever it costs. We need to start taking responsibility for it. It is the one asset that the town has. It's the one asset that's going to save the town. And the only way to pay for it is to tax. Without it, everybody knows. The property values will be in the toilet or in the ocean, depending on where they are. And all the services that the town provides will suffer. Everybody needs to know that your garbage pickup will go up drastically if the first row of houses falls in the water. 27% of tax revenue comes from the first row, the beachfront houses. Without that, it'll be a much bigger increase for you to get your garbage collected than it will be for the increase in the taxes. We need to take action. It is time for this board to make the difficult decisions. The easy ones you make all the time. This is the difficult one that needs to be made. If we don't do the taxes and we don't do the beach, nobody needs to be worried about running for council in a few years because there won't be a town. We need to get the beach renourished and we need to pay for it ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does any of the council have any reports?
Madam Mayor, just a couple things. I don't know if you'll talk about it a little bit more, but the mayor, the town manager, assistant town manager, and myself, I think, made our 5th trip to Raleigh. It was a very good meeting with the House representatives of what the towns need and the restrictions they put on the towns and not allowing us to be able to generate funds for stuff like beach renourishment. They listened very well. They actually made comments in a little news brief they had about what our assistant town manager had to say. They are starting the process of trying to generate funds for beach towns and counties. So meetings like the ones we're doing are working. The second thing is I'd like to thank everybody for coming out here tonight, voicing your opinion, letting council hear everything. I've said many times a town cannot do anything unless everybody works together. Whatever we do in this town, it takes the whole community to work together to make sure it works the right way. So thanks for coming out and letting us hear your opinions.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else have a report? I'd like to ditto Jeff's report. The state has put it in the Senate budget. It moved on to the House, and the House has it a funding pool of money for beach, actually it's shoreline protection mitigation program. The theory is you protect your beaches from any hurricane by making them bigger. Don't know if it'll stay in the budget, but at least it's there, and it was funded by the House budget, which is from the general fund. So keep your fingers crossed. Maybe some point in the future there will be some help from the state. And at this time, I'll call for a 10-minute break. If everybody be back here by 1:45 would be helpful. We get this, get the budget approved and finish our agenda. Okay, good. All right, we're moving on in our agenda to, I'll call for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Yes. Thank you very much. Now that takes us down to, we suspended the rules and we moved the golf course up to the next item on number 2. Consideration and action regarding the Par 3 at South Harbor Golf Course. I'd like to make one public statement because there is some confusion and misleading information. The town, in the motion, never, ever, at one time or any time, said that they would not maintain the golf course. The motion did not have that in it. In fact, it had a way, it even called for outsourcing or changing the employee status to some degree to maintain it. So I wanted to get that clear in the general public because I do think there's misleading information. And as I state that, if that information is coming from social media, if you find something on social media that you have a question about, I invite you. My phone number's on the website, and any of these council members will be happy to take your call. With that said, I have a discussion or a motion considering the Par 3. There was a tabled motion on May the 23rd. Let me go back to my notes here. Lisa, can you clarify, would you like to clarify that for me, when it was made and what happened?
Yeah, the motion was made at the May 23rd meeting, and it was tabled to the June 5th meeting, and then it was just removed from that agenda, so we just placed it back on an agenda for any action that council needs to take.
So it's a tabled motion?
And my understanding is that there were several council members that met with the POA, the attorney. How much of that can we?
There was one, that was the mayor and one council member.
Okay.
Had a roundtable discussion. I thought it was a very productive discussion. Everybody was very open to suggestions, and we bounced some things back and forth, and I hope we've come to some sort of a solution that maybe will turn into a more permanent solution as we move forward. At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
One other statement I would like to make is I don't know how much the memberships are at the golf course, but I found out yesterday that there are 18 memberships held by the people who live at South Harbor Village. 18. And of all the people who spoke tonight, none of you hold a membership. And I just thought that was interesting.
Brian.
Order, please. Order, please.
Would anyone like to make a motion, or how do we?
I would like to amend my motion to add an effective date 120 days from tonight.
What?
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, or could you?
Ma'am.
Excuse me, you're out of order, ma'am. Have a seat. Excuse me?
Ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Ma'am, please.
Officer?
This was based on the meeting that you guys had. My understanding was that they needed more time.
Well, Councilmember Bell, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
We discussed some possible options to work in collaboration with the POA. There's a few legal, and I don't want to speak on behalf of their attorney. Their attorney was there yesterday as well. The long and short of it is there's a few things that they are willing to look at that will help defray some of the costs or other options that I think will be palatable to this council and this town. Due to the notice requirements and the number of subgroups out there, they need around 120 days to make all of that happen.
Okay.
And if you want my advice on the motion, I think you should allow that 120 days to see if they can come up with a solution and work towards a.
So should we table this motion for 120 days?
No.
Scotty had a.
I think you can table it for 120 days. If you make a motion to not make it effective until 120 days, then it's.
That's what I was trying to do, to add an effective date 120 days from today.
So are you saying that if the vote would pass tonight, that positive vote would not become effective for 120 days? I think my recommendation would be to table the motion for 120 days.
That's fine with me.
How would that affect the budget process that we're not?
It's already in the budget
Correct.
So your recommendation is to table the motion for 120 days?
Right, I think that sends the message to, and I hope that those out there that hear this, sends the message that the town's willing to allow them to have the 120 days that they need to show us that they want to assist in making this a successful venture.
All right, I would like to take the town attorney's recommendation and table this motion again for 120 days from tonight.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. All righty.
You want to let them leave?
Okay, we're moving on to the committee appointments. We have two different
Wait a minute, let them get out.
See, they got people out there shaking their head. Just shoot them. Stay on. And when they come back and say, we're not doing anything.
Doesn't matter.
But you know what I'm saying, Dan.
Oh, yes, sir.
Please be quiet. We're leaving the room.
God spoke.
Reminds me of the Wizard of Oz.
I'm going to go ahead, Jim. All right, we're moving on to the committee appointments. There are two committees tonight that have vacancies. The first one's the Emergency Service Advisory Board. It has, Lisa, was that correct? It has 2 terms?
Yes.
2 terms and 3 applicants. The first applicant is Chris.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Sure.
All 3 of these applicants have stated that they are currently serving on Emergency Services Board. So why do we only
Mr.
have
Becker
2?
is not current.
Mr. who?
Mr. Becker is not current. He has previously served.
Okay.
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 Are we good? All right, the first applicant is Chris Becker. Show of hands, please. Reese Simmons. Reese and Tommy Croddick. All right, did you get Reese and Tommy? Okay. Par 3 golf course, Mr. John Bach. Okay, thank you. Administrative reports. Mr. Kelly, do you have a report for us tonight?
Yes, ma'am, very brief one. Currently, we have received $391,000 in reimbursements from FEMA to date. We've also received a pier project from FEMA in $759,000. This gives us the ability to appeal that and now ask for some additional funding for the pier for the construction. We've applied for and are applying for $1.3 million worth of grants. The Emergency Beach Sand Project, we have been granted another about $1.8 million above what we was given before. And that's what we're working on at this time, and I'll just be brief and go with that.
Good job. Thank you, staff. That's a lot of hard work dealing with FEMA been a long time coming. Mr. Eves, do you have a report?
Quickly, Madam Mayor, the Emerald Isle matter that deals with the dry sand beach, the town was one of many towns, or all the coastal towns donated to an amicus brief. The North Carolina Supreme Court dismissed the appeal back in December. Since that time, the plaintiffs have petitioned the United States Supreme Court to hear the case. We waived, I represent Emerald Isle on that matter, we waived the initial response, which is customary. Just today, the United States Supreme Court invited us to file a response, so they may very well take the case up. We'll probably file the response within 60 days. Statistically, it's unlikely that they'll take the case, but this case has garnered some significant attention, so they may, and I'll keep you posted as we go forward.
All right, great. Thank you so much. All right, old business, consideration of a contract with McAdams Stormwater. Everybody had an opportunity to read their package. Do we need explanation from Mr. Kelly of any kind?
There are two, I sound like a broken record on these engineering type contracts. I'd like to adjust the insurance provisions of it and the indemnification provision of it. the way we always have. I don't like limiting their liability, and any indemnification needs to be reciprocal. I can go into that deeper, but it's the same thing I've said for the last 12 engineering contracts. Subject to those changes that I'll work out with their council, fine with it if staff's fine with it.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the contract with McAdams Environmental Construction amount of $428,538 for installing a new stormwater system for the Town Hall and Police Department complex to include the corrections or to be made by our attorney.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please. Thank you. Move number 2, that's gone, so we're down to number 3. Consideration of a contract with Moffitt and Nichol for engineering services to provide a beach plan. This is the same plan that we've been talking about all along. We're just down to the final vote on whether to approve it or not. At this time, I entertain a motion.
We've already negotiated those changes for this contract.
Yes.
This has been on 2. I'm satisfied with the final iteration. If
We
that's
don't
what
need a
you're-
motion to approve it?
Oh, you need to. You need, I'm just saying as far as the legal review of it, that's occurred and the changes have been already.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Moffitt and Nichols.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Mayor, can I just clarify? I'm sorry, can I just clarify one thing? We were, I think, going to split that out into 2 different contracts just for the monetary amounts. So if we could just have the authorization for the manager to sign that once it's been provided to us. That's the only thing that's going
Does
to
that
change.
need a motion or just a consensus?
No, I just wanted to clarify that that's how we were going to have it signed.
If you agree as council, please raise your hand. Thank you. New business. Consideration of the 2017-18 budget. Let me get to it. Do we have any discussion? Anybody like to make a motion?
I'd just like to say, in light of the fact that we have hired 2 separate financial firms to come in and advise us as to what our plan should be, and their plans have been pretty much the same, but I thought that Doug Carter and Associates came up with a good plan, and one of the things that they said to us in our last meeting with them, they did not advise us to take any money out of our fund balance. That if we do have a major storm that comes in here and tears up our infrastructure, basically we got damage from Matthew, but it was mild damage compared to what it could have been. We had no structural damage, and we had no damage to our infrastructure. If that happens, we're going to probably need more than we've got in our fund balance to correct and repair what needs to be repaired. So I'm going to make a recommendation or a motion that we follow Doug Carter and Associates' recommendation that we implement a 10 cents tax increase in the 2017-18 budget to be earmarked for beach renourishment to go to the beach fund.
Are you making that in the form of a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. This is a plan that I think is going to work. We start with a 2-cent tax this year. That's going to generate us $484,000 and change. We use that money to get the project going immediately. We can use money in the general fund reserves for the Wilmington Harbor project. That will still leave us with $6,523,000 and change. We direct staff to begin the assessment process, spreading the assessments over 4 years, and that will ease the burden a little bit on our taxpayers. In 4 years, we're going to have paid off the general fund debt on capital projects. That's going to give us $1.6 million extra dollars a year.
we start rolling that money into the sand fund, and in the meantime, we continue looking for possible funding through the county, state, and the federal government. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2017-18 budget as amended with a 29-cent ad valorem tax for the general fund budget and a 2-cent ad valorem tax, with that money to be transferred to the sand fund for a total ad valorem tax rate of 31 cents.
Does anyone make a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, any discussion?
Dave Hatton. Are those numbers correct?
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to say a couple things. I sat down with DEC because I wanted a little bit better understanding of the money we had and the money that we needed to do. There was a couple of recommendations. One of them was the 10 cent, and the other one was if we could generate the funds, we didn't need that 10 cent. Also, our finance director, David Hatton, our town manager, David Kelly, and Lisa, our assistant town manager, has done an outstanding job trying to look at the best way to do a $40 million project and have the less impact on the town people. And I commend them on the work they've done, looking out for the best interest for the town and the people in the town. And I think with the motion that's in place that Councilor Scott has put, I think we're on our way to doing that project.
Any more discussion?
I agree with Jeff. I've tried to understand this. I've talked to many people, trying to get my mind around the taxes versus the assessments versus this versus that. And I think that what Scotty's come up with is a good start. It gets us going anyway in the right direction.
All right, we have a motion on the table, I believe. Did we not? Did we get a second?
Can I say one more thing, Madam Mayor?
Sure.
We've also looked at how we're going to maintain the beach in the future after this project's over. And they came up with a plan. After the project's over, it'll be a 4-cent tax that will generate funds for the 6 years. And then we would do just a very small assessment, and that will raise the $23 million we need to do the 6-year maintenance project to keep sand on our beach. And I think everything that's been put in place will work, and I commend everybody for that.
Call for a vote. All in favor?
Well, before you do, let me just make a comment. I mean, I'm not that opposed to Scotty's motion. He and I already talked about this afternoon. I just think it's the wrong way for us to go. What you just heard Councilor Weinkoff say is that there are going to be assessments on top of assessments. If we did the 10-cent tax increase, that would be an ongoing fund that would be building, and there would be no more assessments. So you're going to pay now or pay later. It makes better sense to me to increase the tax, let everyone get accustomed to it and adjust to it, let that continue on and furnish us the money we need for maintenance on the beach rather than have to do assessment after assessment. It just makes better sense to me. So that's.
Any more discussion?
No, Madam Mayor.
All in favor of the motion on the table? All opposed?
Favor.
Okay,
Sorry.
let's do that again. All in favor of the motion on the table? 4. All opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Consideration of a pay classification scale. Entertain a motion to approve the pay classification scale or discussion. Anybody want to make a motion?
I need to get there.
I make a motion to approve the updated pay classification and salary grade scale as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Thank Consideration of the 2017-18 fee schedule, including the sewer district fee. Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second, please. By Jeff, all in favor. Motion moved, so moved. Consideration of changing the July regular meeting due to one of our council members being unable to attend, moving it to Thursday, July 13th. And I think you just need a consensus for this?
No, a vote, please.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
Entertain a motion to change the meeting date?
Motion to approve.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
So
Thank
that's July
you.
13th.
All right. Consideration of parking on 69 Place West. Over Memorial Day weekend, there were numerous complaints about parking in the Kings Lynn West Beach area. There is inadequate parking in these popular beach areas, and allowing parking on 69 Place West might help meet some of those demands. Does anybody have any?
Madam Mayor, I got a lot of phone calls. I'm sure everybody else did. Mr. Foster made a good point. We need a parking plan. We need an overall assessment of our parking position, what's available, what isn't available. There's a lot of misunderstandings. You'll go by people's houses and they'll have fences in their front yard. It's very confusing. So I would like to ask staff to take on the responsibility, if you will, of doing an in-depth parking assessment so that we know what we're dealing with, what we truly have to work with, as opposed to this hit or miss type of situation we seem to be in now.
So I'm assuming, Councilman Blaylock, you're asking the council to have a concession to direct staff to come up with the parking plan and bring it back to the July meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
And this
please.
is for the entire island?
Yes, ma'am, for the entire island.
Maybe not July meeting.
That won't be the July.
Maybe not the July meeting.
Not time for that.
Oh, no, I mean, we could, no. September, October will be fine.
So we're needing.
We're not gonna make it this summer anyway, so it doesn't.
We're needing now.
Meanwhile, we've still got the issue that we're faced with right now, and I agree with you. We've still got the issue we're faced with right now. And I think to do the parking on 69th Place West, to pull no parking signs at Yopon Dunes is kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to a major problem. It's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on cancer. There are some places we can make some immediate improvement to relieve some of that heavy parking problem on the west end by increasing the size of our parking lot down there on the west end, not on Kings Lynn, but the other side of West Beach Drive. And our Steve Edwards says that he thinks that could be done pretty quickly, right? Well, if we get on it and you really work hard at it, you can probably get it done, right? And then there's some other places.
In his spare time.
There's some other places that are available to us up on the east end in the area of the pier that if we work quickly and hard and make the right decision, we can find a place up there for probably another 100, 125 vehicles. So I would like to see us go in that direction right now. And then meanwhile, do what Charlie's recommended, come back with an overall parking plan. And how many more years are we going to talk about this? How many more years are we going to sit up here and say, well, we should have done something last year? It's time for us to do something. One of the pieces of this pie is going to have to be paid parking. It's going to have to be to control it. So there you go.
So would one of you like to direct me?
We got it. We know
Got
what we
it?
need to do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we need a motion for that? I
I
don't
think
we
just
do.
a direction.
Direction.
Consensus.
As long as the staff understands what we want to do.
Come back with the recommendation of where we can increase the parking areas.
That ain't gonna be the only thing you have to do. I don't care.
That'll be a good start for right now.
What, you're gonna have to come up with more enforcement.
Right.
Just increasing parking, it won't stop.
Well, that'll be part of the overall plan. I mean, you gotta look at everything, not not just the geographic location of the parking, but all the other elements that go with it.
You're gonna be a busy man.
Who? Oh, David, oh, phew, thought you meant me.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Eads, can we add a discussion of personnel to the closed session?
Sure.
If you can add personnel, it would just be adding subsection 6.
To the motion.
Yes, please.
Motion to go into closed session to discuss pending litigation and personnel.
Motion to go into closed session to consult with the town attorney on pending and potential litigation pursuant to NCGC 143-318, 11A3, and subsection 6. Is that what you said?
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
I figured y'all had one.
At this time, I'll call the meeting back to order, and also like to state there was no action taken during our closed session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Thank you.